It's the fastest pace of growth for the Nigerian economy since 2014. It's also a clear indication that Africa's largest economy is now effectively on the path to full recovery from the crunch it experienced in 2020 as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic and the consequent collapse of oil price. The 5% growth rate is an impressive performance when compared to the negative growth rate of minus 6.10% recorded in the second quarter of 2020, indicating a rebound in business and economic activities.
The growth was largely from what you may call base effect, from the fact that the GDP figure in second quarter of last year contracted by 6.1%. So moving from a period where there was almost total lockdown of the economy to a period in the current year where economic activities are resumed. So you are measuring a base that was almost zero with a base that had some economic activities. And that's why we saw such material increase in GDP.
The non-oil sector contributed a huge chunk of 92.58% to the nation's GDP in the second quarter of 2021. It grew by 6.74% in real terms in the same quarter. But in a twist of events, sectors of the economy which had performed well during the peak of the pandemic witnessed slower growth, while some which performed poorly saw a rebound. One clear example is the ICT sector, which grew 16.52% in the second quarter of 2020. It only grew 5.50% in Q2 2021.
If you look at the ICT sector, we've seen, like you rightly pointed out, we've seen a consistent decline in the growth rate. And I think it has to do with the policy environment. One part of it could be related to security issues. In the Northeast, I know a lot of their facilities are actually attacked regularly, frequently. And I think that may also be happening in the Northwest. But beyond that, we also have an environment where some of the policies of the government are constraining expansion of further investment in that sector. We saw the issue of suspension of registration of SIM cards, which led to a reduction in number of active lines. Of course, a reduction in active line will mean that the level of service, the volume of services will decline.
While oil accounts for the bulk of Nigeria's revenue, its performance in the second quarter of 2021 does not leave much to be desired. With an average daily production of 1.61 million barrels per day, it declined by 12.65%, contributing 7.42% to total real GDP in the quarter.
What's basically happening is that we're not doing well in terms of crude oil production, which is one of the key factors you look at when you're computing oil GDP. For several reasons, issues relating to OPEC cuts, the fact that OPEC is also extending some of these cuts and to ensure that crude oil price remains very high. So what that means is some countries are not really gaining from the higher prices of crude oil, especially countries like Nigeria, because to get that high price, you need to reduce output, to be able to ensure that the market is not flooded with too much of crude oil. I mean, because it's a demand and supply driven market. So that in itself means that the oil sector will continue to face, significant pressure as some of these continue to play out.
The steady rise in the GDP is a sign that the Nigerian economy is indeed turning the corner. The government expects the economy to grow by 2.5% this year, and it appears things are moving along that trajectory.